chance to make it 28-3. Arthur Blank loving it. Up by 25. Toss to White. He's in! What a comeback!
All right, welcome to another episode of the 28-3 podcast. My name is Max. I'm here with Nick and Corey. Today we're going to talk about the game with the Tennessee Titans from yesterday. So, guys, let's dive right into it. Corey, give me a couple of things you liked about the game.
I'll say this. First game, we were all wondering how this team was going to look in action that mattered. Okay, so mine's pretty general. I liked that we went up against a tough opponent. And it was a close game. I expected that personally. I think some of us did. Heard some fans kind of upset that it looked like we were kind of disjointed on offense. It's like, look, Tennessee's got a stout defense. So what I liked the most is that, that we won, but the way that we won. It was a tough game, a gritty game. We grinded it out. We weathered some adversity. Derrick Henry had his patented stiff arm against my guy, Marcus May. He had his screenplay that went for 30-plus yards. They got to the quarterback. Everything that, it wasn't everything could have gone wrong, went wrong, but we went up against some shit. There was a terrible call on Olave where, Alex Molden's son put Olave in a chokehold. I don't know if y'all caught that connection, but Molden was the DB on that play. And we grinded it out. And and here's the biggest thing about what I liked. Timeliness. Timely plays when we needed them. That was what we were missing last year, among many other things. And in games where we had a great team and didn't pull it out, was that sure we had a big splash play here and there during the middle of the game, but of really no consequence at the end of the day. When we needed a first down at the end of the game, Jamal Williams had one of his longest runs from scrimmage, got the first down. When we needed to convert, Derek Carr finds Shaheed open, gets the conversion. Defense, same thing. Too many examples to name on the defense, but holding Derrick Henry to 60-something yards rushing is fantastic for the first time playing him. So for me, the toughness, the timeliness of the plays that we needed when we needed them, and that's, to me, what I liked the most to see out of this team.
Yeah, gotcha. Nick, what you got on this?
I mostly agree. I think of a couple things just watching the game. From start to finish, at no point did I think we were the inferior team. If you were a neutral fan watching that game, you're wondering how we were down by 3, tied, up by 1. Mm-hmm. It just stayed a one-score game. There was a ton of plays we left out there on offense, which, I think these two guys and many fans are calling for more creativity. Well, you saw a ton of it, in my opinion, when you have, that many mix of players. Olave coming out of the backfield. You have Shaheed saving it to the fourth quarter to see him on those end arounds that, one should have been a huge play if not for Kirkwood's, completely boneheaded hold 10 yards downfield, cost us that 15-yard, cost us most of the yardage on that 15-yard run. And then them going right back to it in a second and long to set up the Williams run was brilliant. You knew it worked. You ran it to the other side. You got another 6.5 yards, set that up for Williams to have a chance at getting that first down to close the game out.
Yep.
The one, Corey was talking about timeliness. I'm good and bad with that. I feel like Carr in the second half was almost flawless. It was, even the plays that we didn't make were just the Olave PI where they called down at the 5-yard line, where I still feel he should have caught that ball, was an absolute dime. That ball was 50-plus yards in the air, hit both his hands, even with the guy, raking his arm across his chest.
Yeah, it was like fingertips.
Yeah. He's got to catch that. Yeah.
Him being who we all think he is as Saints fans, I think he's got to catch that ball. But obviously it was a PI.
Yeah.
But the greats play through that, I think. Even the slider receivers can play through that. And he probably catches that more times than not, I would say, even with the interference. A couple other plays bothered me a little. Obviously, the Shaheed fumble, but that's going to happen, I guess.
The defender made a really good play on that. I mean, swiped. It shouldn't happen.
And it was a great recovery too.
Shouldn't happen, but
he got it before it went out of bounds, barely.
Yeah, remember though, we're talking about the things you liked about the game, so you can save those for the next round.
Carr was a standout, other than one pass, in my opinion. Offensive line did him no favors in the first half. It was, embarrassing from that standpoint. He just stood in there. He stared it down. The throws were almost perfect.
Whatever the term is for less than no favors is what the offense was.
Right. And he didn't cave at all. There was no, he stood in there. He got the roughing call in the third quarter, stood right in there, delivered a great pass.
Yeah.
The clutchness of throwing deep in 2 third down situations because he knew the read was there, and I love that. There's debate whether you should be throwing deep on 3rd and short when you're trying to suck the game away, but Shaheed was open by 10 yards, and that was an absolute perfect pass. He was aggressive. Everything was pretty much on target other than the one pass, which I think he also admitted was, a mistake on his part.
He said dumb. He used the word dumb.
Yeah.
He's like, I was being dumb. Which is great to hear.
Hey, accountability. I'm
exactly.
glad you owned up
from
to
accountability.
And then the only other thing, obviously that was as close to a perfect defensive game as you can be. You start the game inside your 20 on a turnover. You push him back and force a 50-yard field goal. Yeah. Then you just dominate. You get turnovers. You get sacks. A couple plays, the long Henry catch Corey referred to, you'd like to not see that, but that's Derrick Henry, and that's going to happen.
We said it when we had Adam and Ryan on last episode, and they've said it in their own pods, and I agree with them, maybe not as much as y'all, but busted plays are going to happen. We knew that was coming.
Yeah, there were no long pass plays, none. Everything, everything was in front. The DBs, Adebo looked like Adebo from 2 years ago. Alante was all over the place. Teron coming up and hitting Henry on multiple occasions. You just saw the secondary to me was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the defensive line way overachieved any of our expectations, I think, in their first game. That was very impressive.
What you got, Max?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me, the biggest positive was the defense. First and foremost, it's hard to single out any one player, although Marshawn Lattimore's got a really good case. The entire secondary was just lights out, man. At the beginning of the second half, when Marshawn went out for a play or two and Yadam came in, and in the end zone right in front of us, that's where Tannehill went deep, and he tipped the ball to Marcus May, and that was an amazing play, and I was not expecting Yadam to make this. We've been over it multiple times, how none of us really knew much about Yadam before final cutdown day when he made the team, but that was just a testament to how well coached the defensive backs are and how well they're playing together right now, which is a far cry from this time last year. The first couple of games last year, these guys were out of sync, and Matthews gone on record in interviews talking about how he didn't really feel comfortable until the back half of the year, and it showed. Adebo wasn't the same player last year that he was his rookie year. It seemed like everybody was working. They were working on their cohesion at that point. They just didn't have any of it. But this year was good to see them get started off on the right foot. 3 interceptions yesterday. They had 7 all last year. So
I'll say this real quick about the defensive backfield. It's like a poor man's version of when the Eagles did the super team last year. It's like all these guys should work together. They're all talented, but they haven't played together before.
Right. And hey, look, they got started on the right foot. Ugo Amadi came in, had a great pass breakup. He could have had an interception.
Your guy, Agent Zero.
That was the worst game, I think, of Ryan Tannehill's career statistically, and he easily could have had 2 or 3 more interceptions. Yeah. So as far as the defensive line, I really liked what I saw out of Brian Brzee. He the long-running debate we have, I feel very strongly, and I think Nick will agree with this, that Brzee is going to outsnap Saunders and Shepard for the season, and we'll monitor that as we go along.
Well, after watching that, you have to hope that's the case.
Yeah, like he's an animal. Like he can do things physically that these other guys can't do.
Yeah.
When you see him, like you see shades of Chris Jones from Kansas City.
Yeah.
Linebacker-wise, DeMario doing DeMario things. Man, there were a couple plays where he got into the flat and just mauled the person that was supposed to be blocking him. He threw Henry down once or twice. On offense, it was a gritty performance. Carr had a couple plays that he would like to have back, the interception in particular. But overall, good first start, over 300 yards. Could have had substantially more if Olave runs through and makes the catch. Shaheed was fantastic after the first quarter.
Right.
It seemed like he got rid of his jitters pretty quickly after that. He made a mistake, bounced back. I want to say he had over 200 all-purpose yards, which is fantastic.
Was it that high? Wow.
Yeah, it was over 200.
I guess if you count his returns, too,
Yeah. Olave, with the exception of the one catch he missed, he was pretty damn lights out. And the reality is he's never going to be this overly physical, run through the defender type of receiver, to go get the catch. But,
Right.
Nick said it perfectly earlier today. He said he reminds him of the Rams receivers from The Greatest Show on Turf.
Dude, I had that thought in my head just now. He's the closest thing we have to a modern-day Torrey Holt.
Yeah,
Or
I would say he's more Isaac Bruce.
Isaac Bruce, he gets down.
Slender.
Yeah, catching and
Holt
get down.
Well, I guess Holt was more the tougher one out of the two.
Yeah,
But
shy away from contact. All those guys.
he
whether
did it
was-
in this game. One of those over the middle. I mean, he hit the deck. I mean, he didn't even try to slide, make it pretty. I
Well,
mean,
we were talking-
He rolled on his belly. It was like a fire drill.
It was
Stop,
that
drop, and
AK
roll.
play because AK's out and he's running
Yeah,
that.
that's what it was.
Yeah, and it's funny because being at the game and we're sitting there watching it, and one of the people sitting around us was a big Jamal Williams fan, and she's going on and on about, they need to be doing this and need to be doing that, and I said no. Like the issue today is we literally have Jamal Williams and nobody else
Right.
at the running back position.
And
I
Kirk
think Tony
Merritt-
Jones had one carry.
Yeah.
Kirk Merritt I don't think had a carry. Taysom was relatively unused as well per his normal usage. So it was basically the Jamal Williams game at running back.
Yeah, and I know we're moving into what we didn't like next, but one thing, but you brought it up. I was going through Twitter on our podcast account, so encourage anybody listening to this to check it out. But one of those film guru guys, Matt Waldman, posted this video that he thought was enlightening or crazy because Chris Olave, the receiver, ran a route out of the backfield, and I told you, and you agreed, Max. Like I recognized it immediately as a staple of the Carmichael offense. It's the classic angle route out of the backfield and/or choice route.
It's a choice route. Yeah, that was
that's
the
the
one
thing,
with
yeah.
Breeze. It was always to the flat or kind of
This
wheel
one
to the-
looked to definitely be a choice because you can see Olave size up the defender and then he cuts in. But I remember going to the San Francisco game. It was a Monday night game the year after we won the Super Bowl. Reggie's still on the team, and one of our touchdowns to Reggie, I'll never forget it, was that perfect angle route. He goes to the hash or just past the hash, hits it at 5, cuts it in. They can't defend it.
Yeah, and back to my original point with the story I was telling is that I looked at the person next to me and I said, you know what? We need to get someone in the backfield. I don't care if it's a wide receiver, someone who can mimic these routes, the ones we're talking about, because that is a staple of the offense.
Yep.
And then 2 seconds later, you see Olave motion to the backfield and he runs this route, and it was a perfectly called play. So it's funny that we all were kind of harping on it in the situation, and it came to fruition. But other than that, Michael Thomas looked good.
Yep.
Had some tough catches, some really good tough catches, especially in the fourth quarter. And I just love that they knew they had to pass the ball, towards the end of the game. Like we were not getting 10 yards and a first down by running the ball. We just weren't.
Yeah.
The Titans had the best run defense in the league last year. Jeffrey Simmons, seeing him up close, he was 15 feet away from us the whole game when he was, when they were on the bench. He is huge.
Yeah. And
Like this guy looks like fucking King Kong.
for those who don't know, I mean, it should be obvious from our logo, Max is the Darth Saint. But your seats are right there on the front row, which is
Right behind the opposing team's bench.
I've
So
sat
we
with
get a
you
good
for
up close look at these
one
guys.
game, and it's a totally different vantage point. Now, we did have the dome covered from all angles because your boy was sitting up in the 600s in the corner, which was, look, fantastic views. Lizzie and I had a great time, but when you're in your seats, yeah, you can size these dudes up. It's impressive.
Back to what you said, though, about not performing in the run game. We were not, but that's what opened up the second half, too. That we did not give up. We ran it 25
we were
times.
balanced.
And I think 28 total, but 3 were the kneel out the clock. So I think that paid off, and
Oh, they stuck with it. They
opened
had
up,
to.
they stayed for it. You saw them bringing 5 on the line over and over again. You saw them coming up. It opened up everything behind it. The other thing I'd say about the Olave play running that option route that Kamara usually runs is imagine this offense with Kamara in there and Olave in his normal position. It opens up a whole lot more because you're not having to use Olave in that role. Missing him, I think if we would have had Kamara in this game, the offense would have been way more dynamic because what could have neutralized that defensive line is more flat, screens, stuff in the flat to AK, We didn't have the guy who runs that the best, so we adapted. I think we did a great job. But with him, that offense is going to look so much more dynamic, especially against good front sevens like Tennessee has.
Yeah, and to your point, that's a great point. Also, missing Kendra Miller yesterday hurt because there was literally no other threat at running back than Jamal Williams. And Jamal Williams, I love him, but he's a pretty one-dimensional guy. You know what I mean? He's the plow horse.
Yeah.
He's not going to be breaking these dynamic big plays that someone like a Kamara can do. And then from the little that we've seen of Kendra Miller, and then also looking at his college highlights, he's somebody with he has juice. Mm-hmm. Like if he gets to that second level, he's a threat to take it all the way. Yeah. We don't have anybody right now who can do that. Kirk Merritt has the measurables, but he's never done it at the NFL level. So, and you can see they didn't put him out there at all. So they obviously don't think much of it either. So, to your point, bring him back. Hopefully, Kendra Miller will be able to play this week, and then getting Kamara back is going to change the dynamic of this offense completely.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say, it came up as y'all were talking, is that there was a couple plays where we did kind of the toss route to Jamal, where the hole was there for a second. And if you've got a guy with the added juice and burst like Kamara or Jamal, he's going to hit that hole. Not that Jamal didn't end up getting 3.5, close to 4 yards, but the play is clearly designed for somebody who can get to that spot faster. And at least the way offensive line, we're about to get into the things we didn't like.
Yeah, that's definitely coming up.
But the way they were blocking yesterday, if there was any sliver of daylight, it had to be gotten immediately. And if it wasn't, that daylight was turning dark.
And Jamal's a 4'6" guy at this point. No one's expected him to hit it and bust it for 20 or 30 yards. He'll get one of those maybe once or twice a year, but you need someone with that instant juice like a Kamara or a Kendra.
Yep.
So
totally agree.
Last thing I want to say on the good side, we've talked a lot about the wide receivers and the skill positions. Carr to the top 3 wide receivers, 24 of 29 for 272.
Awesome.
That's incredible. If that keeps up all year, 75+%.
And again, we were playing the Titans. We're playing a Mike Vrabel team. Right. If there's anyone who knows how to coach his linebackers, how to cover the mid routes, how to coach his DBs, he's shown that team knows how to do it. I mean, they played the Chiefs close last year. They played the Bengals close. And
they're a perennial playoff team.
To that point, it's almost like the way Tannehill played, it was almost like we were watching a ghost of our quarterbacks from last year right before our eyes. Because those interceptions, while I want to give our defense full credit, they made the plays that had to be played. It's not like he didn't have an opening if he threw the ball a little bit further. It's kind of like the Andy Dalton, Trevor Siemian's where...
I don't know.
I'm not talking like sure bet completion, but he was underthrowing Hopkins all day, and we took advantage.
The flea flicker being the biggest one. That should have been a touchdown.
That was his miss. I agree with that one 100%.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we had
the overthrow, not the underthrow.
But at least the INTs. I mean, it was like he thought he had the guys, or the guys thought he thought his guys had our guys beat, and the pass was just woefully underthrown, and that just reminded me of the shit that we dealt with last year. That's all I'm saying on that.
I feel a little bit more on the other side of that with the way the defense. There are certain plays, if you go back and watch the highlights, there is nowhere to throw the ball. I mean...
I'm not taking anything away from our defense.
It was
I'm just
crazy.
Saying it was a combination of our defense being advantageous and Tannehill just like looking like a deer in the headlights because of the way our defense was playing.
He was seeing ghosts.
The one thing we need to see is if we can do that against a team with speed receivers and not more of what Tennessee's rolling up. Right. Lattimore always takes care of those physical guys. It's never a problem for him. Yeah. So let's see when we face the faster receivers, do they look the same? Because I felt they were all over them all game.
So I think moving into the next category, what we did not like. I think it's safe to say we all agree that we did not like
the left side of the offensive line.
I don't want to say the whole offensive line because Ramczyk looked like Ramczyk, which is good for any of those who...
Well, the funny thing is, if you look at the Pro Football Focus grades from the game, one of the top 5 highest graded players in the game was James Hurst, who was on.
Yeah, that's why we don't look at those, because they're nonsense.
Yeah, so I find amusing.
Those grades are like when there's a guy that like I root for personally, and he grades out high. I'm like, those things are
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
Those things are accurate. But
The
then when
reason a Saints fan can pay no attention to those, they always had Marcus Davenport as one of the top 10 to 15 defensive ends in the league.
That's a good
And
point.
if you watched him, you knew that wasn't the case.
you don't think Marcus Davenport was top 10?
He is now.
yeah.
Now that he left, he'll have 14 sacks.
Yeah, God. Yeah, but no, I mean, okay, I'll go on this one. Yeah, it was, I mean, Penning just looked like an absolute liability. That's stating the obvious. Hurst didn't help out that much either. You know, and again, Tennessee's got a strong front, really stout. So they're going to have a few plays where even, you know, our...
This is the toughest defensive line we're going to see.
Yeah, and our best... If we did top 10 rosters before, if we put our top 5 offensive linemen from each position respectively out on that field, Tennessee might still get a sack. You know, they might still have a play where they get through.
Simmons can beat anyone in the league.
People are human,
Yeah.
you know, and so, but again, it's not like Penning just kept getting beat by a better player. He was just out of position. He just looked soft. His feet weren't moving. He was just and you know, look, we're not O-line coaches, but when it's so bad that it's obvious to the untrained eye, you know, you just so that's my worst thing I didn't like. You know, I'll say this to bring it back, that I just pray, you know, that we've said it before, this week 1, you know, taking 50-plus snaps in a game as opposed to even when you're out there with the quote-unquote starters in preseason, you're probably getting 10 to 15. So I'm hoping that the film review is beneficial. This is where we're going to find out how good our coaches are, how good these guys are at learning from mistakes, how well they can adapt. Because quite frankly, if they don't, we're in trouble. You know,
Well, let me say this. This was Penning's second start.
I was getting ready to say that.
And, I mean, let's be honest. He came from a tiny school. And this is basically he's basically a rookie at this point, so I'm not going to write him off yet.
Oh, I'm not writing him off.
His performance was abysmal.
That's what I'm saying. So his performance was really hard to watch, and that's what I'm saying. I hope that, you know, as a guy who you know, increased his percentage of NFL starts by 100% last start, can actually look at the film and learn and then do something about it. You know, he has to.
Yeah. DA said it best. He said, am I worried? No. This guy's going to be a good player in the league. Does he have to get better? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect
Like,
answer.
that was not a good... That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
We all think, you know, we were talking about before, you see him in person, like Max said, he's a insanely
He's
huge
a monster.
human. I think his technique was off. That should be somewhat fixable. He wasn't getting any depth on the pass rush, and it was costing him every time. He was just getting beat outside over and over again. They can fix that. It's not an athleticism problem. He's got that, no doubt about it. It's just working on the technique and making sure he doesn't make technical mistakes.
Yeah, and I'll say one. It's hard to tell the things that we don't know or what their real assignments are.
Right,
You could say like the amateur might just, which we are, but might just say, oh, well, they call a play. Oh, the QB has to know where the wide receivers are running. Wide receivers have to know what routes to run. Running back has to know what to, and the offensive linemen just block. They either block, run, or pass. But it could very well be a hell of a lot more complicated than that, especially at the tackle position. You know, who are you shading to? Who's your help? What side's your help coming from? Is somebody going to chip? Is somebody not going to chip? And there were times where with Penning, it was like, as the not offensive line guy, fan watching it, I'm with you, Nick. I'm like, why did he not just drop back, set deeper, get in a better position? There were times where it almost looked like he thought he was supposed to be helping Hurst on a play, but the dude just runs right by him on the other side. And so, you know, and again, total speculation. Maybe it's a matter of him completely missing an assignment as opposed to him being like physically deficient on a block. Like he was out.
He's never going to be
like,
physically deficient.
That's what I mean. So like,
Yeah.
it seemed to me like there were some plays anyway that look. Some plays he just got beat straight up, but there were some plays where it just seemed to me like he was out of position from the beginning because of a mental assignment.
I agree. Let's give a little credit to the coaches because it looked nothing like that in the second half.
Yeah, they bounced back.
They chipped. There was some.
They
gave
helped.
him some
They
help.
chipped. They rolled Carr right. They did a lot of things
Yeah.
that changed it up. And I don't think they got a sack in the second half. He was pressured a couple times, but
Yeah.
he was under assault in the first half. There's no doubt about it. And
It was a
whatever-
jailbreak for like a whole series straight, man. It was bad.
And we fixed it, and the offense was much more on time the second half than the first half.
Yeah, they brought in some help for sure in the second half. Was there anything else that you didn't like, Max, that you can think?
No, I mean, honestly, you know, Penning was I mean, he's going to be the culprit for most of these, for anyone that's recapping the game. And you know, like you said, we don't know assignments and all that, but hopefully he gets better. And again, like I said, it was his second start. We can't really write him off after that. You know, I know a lot of people are ready to just go ahead and cut him, which is ridiculous.
No.
Like the kid's 23, 24 years old. We knew it was going to take time coming from a small school to the NFL. You know, he's physically, like Nick said, he's going to be able to handle just about anything if he gets the technique down. He just has to learn. He has to get the technique down. He has to get better. So I love what DA had to say about it. It was a perfect way to address it, you know, saying we're not worried, but he has to do better.
Yeah.
Other than that, you know, I would say the run blocking as a whole, but again, you know, we've established that they were going against the top run defense in the league from last year, and their defensive line is fucking stout.
Yeah, it was just slow going. You know, I kept looking at the, you know, since I was about eye level with the big screen, I kept looking at the stats they kept putting up, and it just seemed like, wait, where are the rushing yards? It was like second quarter, 27 yards rushing. Halftime, like 30. It was just like, and then, you know, thinking about that number in terms of like, okay, that's a stat for one. Stats don't show everything.
Right.
And also remembering that, okay, well, it's, again, I know we keep saying it, but it is the Titans. And at least we're committed to it. You know, this easily could have turned it, if this was a Sean.
This is a game we lose in years past.
Yeah, this is a game where Sean has Drew throw 50 pass attempts.
Yeah.
You know, just tries to Sean Payton his way out of it. Someone asked me yesterday when we were talking about the Broncos. They said I was dogging Sean Payton for the onside kick and all that Sean Payton stuff. They're like, so would you really rather DA be the coach over Sean Payton?
No.
And
No, nobody would say that.
no, but I was like, you know,
Even when Sean sucked, it was fun as hell to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I was like, I don't know that I would say that point blank, but I'll say this, like,
I'd rather have DA in charge of personnel.
yeah,
Because
there's
the last 2 years of free agency and drafting have been
and
way
there's
better.
a lot, and it's a bit of a tangent, and we'll get back on track after this, but like, it makes you, unless Sean Payton shows out more, and he's also just had one game in Denver, but you kind of wonder if, you know, when Sean Payton came in with us, 06, then on to 09, 11, what he was doing was truly new. He was
innovating.
The Bill Walsh, innovative, West Coast, but on steroids. And
He also
creative.
was doing it with a top 10 quarterback of all time.
And
so let's
and
not
so
forget that.
we remember it like it was yesterday, but we've also talked about how there were kids born in 2009 who are like slugging beers at the Dome right now.
Yeah.
You know, and so it kind of makes you wonder, like, that was a long time ago. So has that passed him by? We'll see. But I like where we are. I like what the coaching and everything did. I think, look, tough, gritty game yesterday. So
There's one more thing I want to talk about before we finish up of things that I did not like, and that's the amount of plays we left on the field on offense.
There was a lot of them.
There was a bunch of points we left out on the board there, which kept that a close game because I felt, again, if you were a neutral fan watching that, you're like, well, the Saints are a better team here. There's no doubt. But why is the score not reflective of that? We had the opening kickoff. Shaheed give him 3 points with the fumble. Later in the game, he did a great job coming back to Carr and running across the end zone. Carr throws an absolute dime right on the edge of the boundary. And instead of kind of dragging his feet and catching the ball out in front of him, he drops his knee down and it gets called out of bounds. There's been a lot of back and forth on the socials whether his knee was actually in bounds. It was that close. But if he just drags his feet in that scenario, that's a touchdown. That cost us 4 points. The Carr interception in field goal range right before the half, there was no reason to take that chance on 3rd and long. Take that field goal, go into half. The Olave drop we've gone over multiple times. That's 3 or 7 points if he's able to reel that in.
you mean the PI?
And the PI, yep. Let's call it both. We'll give the refs a little credit there too, but I think stars make that play often. And I think he'll say he probably could have made that play if you ask him. The Juwan drop on the Carr roughing the passer would have put us, if he doesn't drop that ball, that would have been tacked on and we would have been in their territory. That's potentially 3 points. So at a minimum, you're talking 17 to 20 points left on the field there. And to be fair on the other side, we may have gotten lucky on that Carr fumble. where Penning got beat outside again, and that was kind of an open hand, debatable.
Where we were lucky was the call on the field, because if they called it a fumble on the field,
it wouldn't have changed.
It would not have been overturned.
Right. So I would to me, that's why I'm more optimistic probably than a lot of people, because 16-15 doesn't sound great, but there was 30 points on the field for us there, no question about it.
Agreed.
We just didn't take them.
Agree. Yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything. Why don't we roll into our big takeaways? Corey, what you got?
Yeah, so...
Like, what's the main thing that stands out to you from this game?
I might have to sound redundant, but it was just the persistence, I guess. You know, like we didn't shy away from a tough opponent. We didn't panic. We stuck to our game plan on both sides of the ball. It was just... The scoreboard doesn't reflect the idea of saying this was a complete team win. But on the flip side, if you look at it, the defense held Derrick Henry to under 70 yards rushing. The special teams came up with a great punt block. Whether or not we did anything with it after, there's one thing. But, the 3 interceptions. Tannehill, I forget what our total number of sacks were, but he did not feel comfortable back there.
3, I think. A ton of pressure.
And then with the offense, we talked about this on our text during the game, but the deep pass to Olave that ended up being the not called PI, maybe could have caught it. Sure, there was an opportunity at that point where it was 3rd down and Michael Thomas was wide open to the point where he was waving beyond the sticks and had room to run after that. Carr decides not to throw it to MT, throws it to Olave, and like y'all said on the text, maybe Olave was the first read. He's got one-on-one, he lets it fly. I'm okay with that, and there were more good decisions than bad from Carr. The offensive adjustments were there. Penning was like letting anybody through, like a bouncer at a LSU bar, and they went in and put a new bouncer, not a new guard, but they just said like, hey, here's a better way to look at the IDs. It helped them out, and so yeah, it just complete gritty, and they got it done.
My biggest thing is obviously the defense was the star of the show. I think we all expected the secondary to look like that, at least everyone here. The defensive line, if they're anywhere near that good this year, the defense is a massive problem for everyone we play. Mm-hmm. They so outperformed what I thought we would look like at the beginning of the season. 3 new defensive tackles. That's our main rotation at defensive tackle. Peyton Turner got hurt. We'll see how that pans out. But Cam looked like old Cam, batting down balls at the line, bull rush. Yeah. I think he got a sack. He looks like he's still in his 20s. DeMario looks like he's 25. The guy's a freak. I mean, some of the hits he was putting on people was crazy.
Leveled Derrick Henry on that.
Yeah,
one
just
time.
Put him in the dirt. But defensive line, anywhere near that good, this defense is for real, and it should be a top 5 defense if they are legit game in, game out looking like that.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And, I feel we didn't give the special teams enough credit. Blake Grupe was fantastic.
Yeah.
Nailed every kick. The 52-yarder being the big one. The punter, Headley, did a real good job. Those guys, the Titans didn't have any real returns to speak of, whether it was kickoffs or punts. So that was, when you look at it relative to Lutz missing an extra point in his debut for the Sean Payton-led Broncos.
Oh, yeah.
That trade is looking like a good one, and also the decision to keep Headley over Gillikin looks pretty good as well. So, other big takeaway, this was essentially week 4 of the preseason, even though it was technically week 1 of the regular season. I expected to see some hiccups in execution and communication, and we'll probably see some more of that this week on Monday against the Panthers. So hopefully we can get that ironed out by the end of the game and be ready to roll for week 3. So we'll see.
Agreed. All right. Well, good discussion. Great win by our Saints, 1-0. And our next episode will be coming to you with a preview of our next game, like Max just said, taking on the Panthers in Carolina, Monday Night Football. But until then, thanks again for listening to another episode of the 28-3 podcast.
What a